Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a little capsule review on a cool little product that I was sent by Awaken Realms, a Polish company that does really cool games like Nemesis, board games mostly, but they do a lot of stuff, and they've created this custom dice set, which is really, really wild, and they wanted me to have a look at it, and I liked it so much I wanted to share it with you. So we're going to get into that, but before we do, I do want to ask you to go and sign up for the Me, Myself, and Die newsletter if you haven't done so already. That's a huge way to help support the channel, and it doesn't cost you anything, and I don't pester you with stuff. I only send it out when there's actually something to say, but I like to give a little behind the scenes glimpse as to what's going on behind the channel, and especially stuff coming up this year. So that would be a great way to help support the channel. Costs you nothing, and it's a big help to me. So let us get on to Awaken Realms specialty dice set. Now, I don't know if these dice are available for purchase now or whether it's a Kickstarter or something, but I'll try and find any relevant links to put them in the description below. So I got sent this box, and when you look at the box, it's pretty wild. It's like, what is this thing? So when you open the box, there's three little boxes, and inside we have these pictures. There seems to be some sort of wolf demon thing, a koi fish, and this sort of interesting sort of fantasy realm. So let us look at the fantasy realm one first, because I happen to know what this is. This is called the Adventure Set RPG Quality Dice, and the art is pretty wild. Like, the design is pretty cool. And then you take that off, and we have the dice and the cards. So these are the story dice, and each of these cards explain what each die does. So I'm going to take these out, and we can have a look at these things. The Awaken Realms Vault. Awaken Realms. I keep saying Awaken Realms. Awaken Realms Vault story dice. So there's 7 of them in here, and 7 corresponding cards as well. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. So the first one is the reaction card. Dice to determine an NPC's reaction. So if you just want to randomly determine what that is, you would pick the reaction card. And on the other side of it, you can see the various faces and what the faces mean. So I will try and find, I think it's this one here. The only downside to these dice is that I wish they were color coded or something so I could tell at a glance which one is which, but you know, that's okay. Defend yourself. So that's number 1. Start a heated discussion. Insult their favorite animal without a second thought. Say something stupid and try proving that you're right. This is what the NPC would do when you're trying to determine what their reaction is. So you would roll it randomly and it would come a 3. And the 3 looks like a dude sort of thinking, looks like the thinker. And the result is think it through. Digest the situation in silence. Maybe they were right. Is something hidden in their words? So that is very cool. This is sort of a way to reproduce a little bit of what the Une NPC emulator does, which I have done a video on way back, which you can find up over here. But this is sort of an alternative to that. So if you're not sure exactly what the NPC is going to do, you can roll this fancy little die, and it's going to come up something. So these dice, I don't know if you can see it from here, but these dice are extremely intricately carved. Really, really, really works of art. Just beautiful things. Each one of them is totally different. The faces are completely different. So that's the first one. Then we have the second one is changes. Dice to determine the development of the scene. Have a little fun as the game master and change the tempo of a scene with a single die roll. So this is kind of like a random event thing like we would do in Mythic, right? But it's 1 die. So I take the die and I roll it and it comes up a 5. And the 5 looks like something I can't quite make out, but it's very intricate. Unpleasant surprise. Oh, it's a chest. It's a chest with teeth. The chest you've been trying forever to open is empty. The door is trapped. The reward for your quest is much less than you expected. So it's an unpleasant surprise. In this particular case, it's represented by this really wild carving of a chest with teeth, like a, what do they call that in D&D? The hell's that thing called? The fake chest, the monster that disguises, a mimic. Is that right? That doesn't sound right. Boy, it's been a long time since I played D&D and looked at the monster manual. Anyway, that's what this thing reminds me of. And there's a bunch of them. I mean, again, they're so intricate. They're really just masterfully carved. The other ones we have are the activity die, dice to determine character activity. So this is what to do with characters' free time or downtime. You know, things like develop a skill, prepare something, visit a tavern, an unexpected event takes place. Again, just a random die. This is emotions, so how to determine the NPC emotions. This one's got, there's the angry face. Then number 2 is the distrustful face. Number 3 is the neutral face. These are just beautiful. I don't know how well they'd roll, you know, because they are very, very unusually shaped. So, you know, this might be considered something of a loaded die, but They are a neat idea anyway. Neutral, scared, cunning, and friendly. That's what all of the faces of this die show us. Then we have the weather, always a useful thing. And the various weather possibilities are storm, precipitation, cloudy, wind, sun, and mist. So, general overview weather stuff. I have a bunch of different weather dice, but this would certainly be the most beautiful of all the weather dice. The other one is perception. Dice to determine what the player characters perceive. This is pretty cool. The game master may use them to come up with details to describe a scene. So if the players are in a dungeon room, let's say, and they say, well, what do we see in the room? Well, you could take your perception die, which is annotated with a giant I as number 1. So they ask about a detail of the room and you roll and you get a 3, which is thought. And it looks like a brain. Maybe the scene evokes a memory, a connotation, a premonition. So as the players are looking at the dungeon room, one of them has a memory of something. They've seen something like this before when they were in a different place, on the other side of the country. They were in a dungeon and they realize that there's some connection there, that maybe the architecture is the same. I don't know, I'm just riffing here. But that's what these dice do, is they help you riff. Super, super cool stuff there. And then the last one here is behavior. Dice to determine NPC behavior during stressful situations. This may come in handy when you are not sure how aggressive the combatant should be or how compliant the interlocutor is. So with this one, we have pragmatic, using sneak attacks and painful arguments, exploiting weaknesses and using terrain advantages, manipulation and feints. Again, these are all open to interpretation, right? They're intentionally vague, so you can apply them to whatever situation you need to. But this is to determine NPC behavior during stressful situations. So let's do something mundane, like you're arguing with a merchant, you're haggling over the price of a new sword, and something goes wrong, and he's stressed out, and he becomes empathetic. Understanding, which is, of course, a dove. Of course, that makes sense. Understanding and knowing their enemy, trying not to harm an opponent, coming to help their allies. So empathetic. So in that case, the NPC merchant is haggling with you. He's getting, hot under the collar. He's getting red with rage at the fact that you're insulting him and my children have to eat and what have you done? But then this die comes up empathetic. So he realizes in order to make a sale, he's got to take a new tact. And he says, my friend, we can come to some agreement. Please, please, please. Change his tact. Interesting. Just an interesting way to sort of play the scene and see what your NPCs do. So these are very cool. Looking for high-quality fantasy maps for your next fantasy RPG campaign? Cheipeku has you covered. Get your hands on more than 4,000 stunning hand-drawn fantasy and battle maps that will take your tabletop role-playing games to the next level. Cheipeku are a couple who love to make maps. They create unique and original worlds with outlandish themes and ideas you won't find anywhere else. Whether your players are heading into a classic dungeon crawl or something a little more offbeat, like a coral throne room or a giant elder brain skull, Cheipeku maps have the imagination to match yours. Their archive is bursting with more than 4,000 hand-drawn maps, with new map packs added every week. Just head over to their Patreon, choose the Master Cartographer membership level, and you can get access to the entire lot. And if you can't find what you want, don't panic. Just let them know what you're looking for, and they'll add it to their weekly Patreon poll. Cheipeku's map packs come with variations for things like seasons, time of day, weather effects, and much more. So if your players spend hours in a tavern planning their next move, you can seamlessly switch from day to night. Level up the action with dynamic animated maps that set the scene for dramatic, campaign-defining encounters with the most formidable foes. Immerse your players deeper with swirling portals and writhing elderbrain tentacles. Cheipeku's fantasy maps work seamlessly on most popular virtual tabletops, including Alchemy RPG, Roll20, Encounter Plus, Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, and more. All of the maps are also available with walls and lighting presets for Foundry VTT, letting you just get on with the action. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to Patreon, choose your membership level, and get your adventure started today. So that's the adventure set. Now let's look at the blessed set, or the blessed set RPG dice. This is the koi fish. Take this out, and the koi. Oh, this is more of a common dice set. You've got your 4, 6, 8 percentile dice, 12 and 20. However, what's interesting about the koi set is this may be granted by the game master when player characters gain an upper hand in a situation or fate is on their side. So This assumes you want to roll high. So what this means is, let's say the character had to roll a d8 for whatever reason, and the game master decided, well, you have some sort of advantage in this situation. Instead of implying an advantage mechanic like they have in D&D 5e or other games, he would say, roll this koi dice. It's a d8. And what do we get from this d8? Well, when we roll it, the D8 actually has more higher numbers, right? So the D8 has a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 as a result. So there's no 1 and an additional 8. Well, that's handy. Or the D20, for example, has 2 20s on it. The D6 is interesting because the D6, or the D4 is interesting because the D4... Look at this, it's so cool. It's got 2, 3, 4, 4 on it. So basically the highest number on the die is repeated twice and the lowest number is removed. So that is how these dice work. So you give those just as a little bonus, and they're beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dice. They're just intricately carved. And look at that, 20. And I had 2 possibilities of rolling 20 on that. So those are neat. And then we have the cursed set, or the cursed set, if you're being Elizabethan about it. And this is the opposite of the koi dice. This is, again, it's got your basic 4s, 6s, 8s, 10s, 12s, 20s. But these are the terror dice. May be granted by the game master when player characters try to make a roll at a desperate situation, or have angered gods or other unfathomable beings, and it is the opposite. Now we have multiple 1s or multiple low numbers and no high numbers. So the D4 in this case now has 2 1s and no 4. But I love this blurb. The terror die has a higher probability of rolling low results. A good way to punish players for bad roleplay. That's awesome. I love that. That's so good. So that's cool. Again, these are just intricate works of art. The design on the terror dice are different from the design on the koi dice. The koi dice designs are just different from the terror dice. So theoretically, if you had better eyes than I do, you could look at this immediately and just by the quality of the design know, oh yes, these are the terror dice versus the koi dice. But if you were to put them together, they're made out of the same material. They're super light, but they're made out of the same material and they're the same color. So at a glance, it's hard to tell exactly what is what. And I know for me, again, with these old man eyes that I have, I would want these to be color coded. So I would know, oh yeah, the black dice are the terror dice, and the white dice or the koi dice, and the whatever, and then each of the story dice, the adventure dice have a slightly different color or some other method of marking them besides the design, because the design is super cool and very, very, very beautiful and super intricately carved. But as a useful thing at the table, I would want it to be more easily recognizable at a glance so that I could tell right away. But that is that. So we've got the terror dice and the koi dice. And of course, these really cool adventure dice. Again, the designs are just beautiful, and that is to be expected from Awakened Realms. Their work is fantastic. I don't know if you guys have ever played their games, but if you haven't, you should, because they're really, really great. The look of the games, the way they play, it's really, really quality stuff. So I'm not at all surprised to see that this dice set is of the high quality that it is. And I want to thank Awakened Realms for sending me these, because if I can find a way to use them, I certainly will. So that's that. That's the Awakened Realms specialty dice set. You can find the links to their website and various associated things in the description below. Go check them out. They're a very worthwhile company. Thanks for joining me here today, guys, and I'll see you next time on Me, Myself, and I.